So the Center for Constitutional Rights has, for a very long time, we've been standing very deeply in support of the rights of Palestinian people in Israel for the right to self-sufficiency in Palestine. And that has taken a few forms, and because we're a litigation and advocacy shop, a number of our litigations have been geared against Israeli military officials for particular crimes. And so we've challenged in U.S. courts through this alien tort statute that allows us to do these courts. We've challenged U.S. corporations that have been complicit in human rights violations in Palestine. So, for example, we sued the Caterpillar Corporation, which makes the armed militarized bulldozers that are bought by Israel that are used to bulldoze Palestinian houses. Rachel Corrie, who's a famous U.S.-based activist, was killed in Palestine because she was standing in front of one of the Caterpillar bulldozers when it bulldozed the house and killed her. So we filed lawsuits against Caterpillar. More recently, we've undertaken to do delegations to Palestine, and I personally led a delegation of black and brown leaders, a delegation of civil rights and human rights lawyers from the United States to Palestine to talk with Israeli human rights groups and Palestinian human rights groups. They met with human rights defenders and lawyers in Palestine and really began to connect the struggles that are happening here and the struggles that are happening there. First of all, what is happening, what I've seen in terms of Palestinian rights support, is that the demographics in the United States are changing. A lot more young folks, and particularly a lot more younger Jews, are outraged by what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians. And that is creating a pretty interesting shift on the progressive side of the Democratic wing. What is clear now is just like in the 1964 election, you could not be progressive on civil rights issues but still want to run for president. But in the 1968 election, you couldn't. You had to be for civil rights. That's the shift that's actually happening right now. You cannot be progressive on foreign policy and a U.S. agenda unless you're progressive on Palestine. And this is, I think, what the both elected officials and people that are running for president are confronting. That if you're against bans, borders, and walls in the context of the United States, if you think that walls against Mexico are wrong, if you think that the Muslim ban is wrong, if you think that people should not be held in cages and kids should not be held in cages in the U.S. context, political coherency dictates that you must also apply that around the world, including to places like Israel. So the definition of progressive is right now in a position of flux and flip, and we're seeing that more of the presidential candidates are struggling and really struggling to come out with an issue, with a position on this issue that keeps the base, which is us, but also brings other people along. So that's what the struggle is happening. With respect to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all of the folks that are very, very outspoken and clear on their position on Palestine, I think it's fantastic. I support them for what they do. Here's the challenge that we have. It is very hard to state a clear position on Palestine without someone muddying that position with a question of anti-Semitism.